Even after the Rose Hanbury affair story went viral in 2019, neither William nor Catherine publicly addressed it. But in 2025, that silence ended, and not just to deny the claim. Catherine's statement revealed that the real damage wasn't the rumor itself, but the way it was used to fracture the royal family from within. She pointed to deliberate media manipulation and an internal campaign, fueled, she alleged, by Meghan's inner circle, as the real culprits. The goal wasn't exposure, it was erosion. If you love getting the real story behind the palace walls, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell so you never miss an update. The scandal became less about infidelity and more about power, who controlled the narrative, who bore the consequences, and who was willing to weaponize innuendo for leverage in an escalating family divide. Catherine's rare intervention showed how fragile royal unity had become, and how quickly rumors could be turned into tools for influence. Her comments shifted the focus away from salacious headlines and toward the underlying strategy that allowed them to thrive. In this light, the issue became one of institutional defense, not personal grievance. By calling out the source and strategy behind the chaos, Catherine moved the conversation from denial to confrontation, from passive victimhood to active resistance, making it clear that, in this monarchy, silence would no longer be mistaken for weakness. It took 6 years, relentless speculation, and the erosion of royal goodwill across 2 continents, but in 2025, Princess Catherine of Wales finally broke her silence. Standing at Kensington Palace, in a controlled but deliberate tone, Catherine addressed the one rumor that had haunted her marriage, tarnished her husband's reputation, and fueled endless social media conspiracy theories: the alleged affair between Prince William and Rose Hanbury. She didn't hedge. She didn't speak in vague terms. She said it plainly. There was no affair, no infidelity, and, more shockingly, she said the entire rumor was fabricated by individuals close to Meghan Markle. That moment, one sentence, changed the trajectory of a royal narrative that had spiraled since 2019. It wasn't just a rebuttal, it was an accusation, a direct, public allegation that the source of years of emotional and reputational damage came from inside the family, not just from the tabloids, not just from the press, but from Meghan's inner circle. Catherine said what no senior royal had dared say publicly, that the Wales family had been the target of a media campaign designed to destabilize them. And it worked. The Rose Hanbury rumor didn't just disrupt Catherine's public image. It turned her into the silent centerpiece of a scandal she never created, couldn't respond to, and was expected to simply endure. Until now, her statement pulled the curtain back on a critical chapter of modern royal drama. It confirmed what many had long speculated, that the cheating rumor, which had started as a single tweet, had been artificially inflated by coordinated media manipulation. That it wasn't just the tabloids running wild, it was a deliberate narrative, pushed at a time when Meghan herself was facing intense scrutiny over reports of staff mistreatment, personal conflicts, and mounting tension with the monarchy. According to Catherine, the rumor wasn't coincidental. It was strategic. While the public and press obsess over William and Rose, the real pressure eased off Meghan. Suddenly, the most discussed issue in royal coverage wasn't palace bullying allegations or Sussex staff turnover. It was William's alleged betrayal. The narrative flipped. The scandal grew legs, and the Waleses were thrust into a reputational crisis they hadn't owned. And what made it worse? The silence. The palace's refusal to address the story publicly, out of tradition, out of protocol, out of fear, only made it worse. People assumed that silence meant guilt, and the longer it lasted, the more damaging it became. The rumor grew beyond gossip. It became a cultural talking point. It bled into podcasts, commentary, online think pieces. TikToks dissected old photos of Rose and William for proof. Reddit threads theorized every timeline gap. Entire personas were built online around exposing the alleged affair, without a shred of evidence. And all the while, Catherine stayed silent. Until now, her statement didn't just deny the rumors. It highlighted how fragile the monarchy has become in the era of weaponized media narratives and algorithm-fed misinformation. According to her, this wasn't a scandal born of fact. It was a fire started by a whisper, stoked by timing, and sustained by people who stood to benefit from chaos inside the palace. And she named the game distraction. By linking the origin of the rumors to Meghan's circle, Catherine reframed the entire scandal not as a crisis of character, but as a campaign of deflection. She didn't accuse Meghan directly, but she didn't have to. She pointed to the media surrogates, the strategic leaks, and the unnamed associates who carefully placed stories in the right hands at the right time. That's where the story shifts. Because if you follow the timeline, it's hard to ignore the pattern. The cheating rumor exploded just as Meghan's relationship with the press reached a boiling point. It pulled focus. It gave the public a new villain. And it left Catherine, the usually untouchable figure in royal PR, in a place she had never been, vulnerable. And William? His silence was framed as arrogance, guilt, evasion. But now, with Catherine's words, that silence takes on a different meaning. It becomes evidence of discipline, of restraint, of an institution trying to hold itself together while being targeted from the inside. The fallout from Catherine's statement has been immediate. In the UK, support for the Walesies surged. Social media campaigns like #KateStrong flooded timelines. For many, her willingness to finally speak was seen not just as strength, but as necessary clarity in an environment clouded by half-truths. But in the US, the response split sharply. Liberal circles and Meghan's defenders called the statement self-serving. They accused Catherine of deflecting from the monarchy's broader failures, racial insensitivity, outdated structures, and the ongoing fallout of Harry and Meghan's public estrangement. Others argue the statement lacked receipts, no names, no emails, no proof, just accusation. Still, the effect was undeniable. Meghan and Harry's favorability ratings, already declining due to stalled projects and legal distractions, slipped further. For the first time in years, the Sussex narrative felt shaky. The image of a wronged couple taking on an institution began to falter under the weight of new claims and shifting public patience. And Harry? His absence from a response was deafening. His lack of denial or defense only intensified questions. If the rumor truly came from Meghan's circle, what did he know? Did he believe it himself? Did he ever try to stop it? Because Catherine's statement didn't just clear William. It isolated Harry. If the Waleses were the targets of a coordinated smear campaign, and Harry knew or allowed it, that's not just sibling tension. That's betrayal. It deepens a rift. The same rift that has fractured royal duties, damaged public trust, and derailed any fantasy of a future reunion. Catherine's words didn't just close the door on the affair rumor. They bolted it shut and burned the bridge behind it. That's what makes this moment so irreversible. And with this, Catherine has reshaped her own image. No longer just a steady hand behind the future king, she's now the voice of institutional defense, measured, composed, and unafraid to speak when it counts. Not to clap back, but to correct the record. Not to gossip, but to reclaim dignity. She's not playing catch-up anymore. She's playing offense. And what happens next is uncertain. Will Meghan respond? Will another palace figure back Catherine up? Or will this be the final word on the scandal that refused to die? Either way, the public is no longer guessing. They've heard directly from the source. And that changes everything. Where do you stand now? Was this the truth we needed, or another round of royal spin? Are you more inclined to believe Catherine's version of events, or do you think there's still more to this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like if this changed how you see the scandal. Share with someone who still believes the original rumor. And subscribe, because in royal history, nothing ever stays buried for long. Because once Catherine spoke, it wasn't just about defending herself. It became a reckoning. She didn't just deny. She dismantled. The Rose-Hambury affair rumor, which had lived in the margins of tabloid headlines and trended on Twitter every few months like clockwork, suddenly felt smaller, weaker, less credible. Because now, someone with real power, someone in the story, had said what needed to be said. And not only did she refute it, she traced it back. That's where everything shifted. Because Catherine's statement wasn't just an emotional plea for privacy or a vague gesture about hurtful rumors. It was specific, strategic. And when she pointed to Meghan's circle as the origin of the affair narrative, she pulled the rug out from a storyline that had been allowed to fester for 6 years. She connected the dots. She showed the timeline. She made it clear that the smear wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated. And people listened. For years, the Rose-Hambury rumor was kept alive not because of evidence, but because no one ever publicly said this is a lie. And when a lie goes unanswered long enough, it turns into a maybe. And once it's a maybe, People will believe what they want to believe. That's what made it so damaging. Catherine, one of the most tightly managed figures in the royal family, became collateral in a battle she didn't start. The most dangerous thing about the cheating rumor wasn't whether it was true or not. It was how believable it sounded because of history. Because people still remembered Charles and Camilla. Because Diana's ghost still haunts every royal story about betrayal. Because no matter how polished the monarchy becomes, it will never fully outrun its past. But Catherine was never Diana. And William isn't Charles. And this time, Catherine made sure we all knew it. What's wild is how effective the smear was, even without proof. There were no leaked texts, no secret meetups, no blindsiding Sunday headlines. Just whispers, tweets, TikTok breakdowns, and heavily cropped photos. And because the palace refused to engage, out of tradition, out of caution, out of fear, it was enough. But now that we know the source, or at least who Catherine believes was behind it, the whole scandal looks different. Meghan's alleged involvement wasn't direct. Catherine didn't say she tweeted it. But she claimed Meghan's circle, people who speak on her behalf, people who move within her media ecosystem, had pushed it strategically. And if that's true, it means the biggest royal scandal of the last decade wasn't organic. It was manufactured, not to attack William, but to protect Meghan by shifting the narrative during a time when her own image was crumbling. Remember 2019? The Megxit planning, the headlines about palace bullying allegations, the rumors about tension with staff, with Catherine, with the Queen. The Rose Hambury story didn't erupt in a vacuum. It showed up at the perfect time to cause maximum distraction. And it worked. The public turned its gaze. The tabloids feasted. And Meghan got room to breathe. If Catherine's right, then that's not just media manipulation. It's betrayal of the institution. Not just personal revenge, but institutional sabotage. And that's a line Catherine drew with her statement. She didn't position herself as a victim. She didn't get emotional. She was composed, but decisive. And it was that tone, controlled, unwavering, that made people believe her. Because Catherine doesn't speak often. When she does, it means something. And this time, it meant war. The effects were immediate. William's image, which had been tarnished by years of speculation, began to stabilize. Public sympathy for Catherine surged. Archewell, already facing financial shortfalls, saw a fresh wave of scrutiny. Harry, once the untouchable spare with a heartbreaking backstory, is now facing growing public confusion. If the scandal were weaponized against his own brother, and he stood by or was cooperated, then what does that say about him? Catherine didn't just change the conversation. She rerouted it. And now, the pressure's squarely on Meghan. If she stays silent, the public will assume guilt by omission. If she denies, it reignites a firestorm she may not be prepared to handle. Because this time, it's not just the press coming for her. It's the firm itself speaking out loud and in sync. Let's not forget, Sophie recently spoke about Meghan's behavior with William. Catherine followed with a direct accusation about media sabotage. These aren't coincidences. They are calculated moves. The senior royals, once divided and silent, are now strategically aligned in a slow, public takedown. It's a coordinated narrative correction. Photos, and the worst part, for Meghan, is that she no longer controls the script. She and Harry spent years crafting a brand built on authenticity, emotional vulnerability, and an underdog fight against a cold institution. But now that the institution is finally speaking, that brand is showing cracks. It's not just the public that's losing patience. It's donors, corporations, political allies. The same people who once praised Meghan's bravery are now asking questions about her team, about her strategy, about what she knew, and when. And for the monarchy, this is about more than one rumor. It's about survival, about protecting the future king and queen from reputational damage that could affect not just public trust, but Commonwealth relationships, international diplomacy, and global perception. Catherine's statement was surgical, not just because it cleared her name, but because it positioned her as the face of modern royal resilience. A woman who remained silent for years out of loyalty, and then spoke with precision when enough was enough. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't post a video from her garden talking about healing and growth. She stood at Kensington Palace, said exactly what needed to be said, and let the truth speak for itself. And that moment redefined her. She's no longer the quiet royal who plays a long game behind the scenes. She's now the woman who faced down the internet's most persistent lie and ended it with one public statement. The Rose Hambury story isn't just dead. It's buried. And Meghan's camp, whether guilty or not, they now carry the weight of Catherine's accusation and the public judgment that comes with it. So where do we go from here? Will Meghan deny? Will Harry defend? Will the palace stay silent and let the public do the math? Whatever happens, the story has changed forever. Catherine took the power back, and she did it with a single, sharp sentence that echoed louder than any Netflix special or Oprah sit-down. Your move, Meghan. Because even after all that Catherine's statement, the backlash, the divided global reactions, there's still one undeniable fact. The damage was already done. Years of speculation had embedded itself into the public consciousness. William had been compared to Charles more times than anyone could count. Catherine had been painted, unfairly, as a quietly suffering wife, another royal woman caught in the cycle of betrayal. That story stuck because it fit a familiar pattern. It was too easy, too convenient. The public wanted to believe it because it echoed history, and when history repeats itself in the royal family, it sells. And that's what Catherine was fighting against. Not just the rumor itself, but the weight of royal legacy. She wasn't just denying a false accusation. She was pushing back against the entire narrative framework that had been built around her for years. A framework that was, if you believe a version of events, carefully manipulated by someone who once claimed she wanted to modernize a monarchy. But now we see the full picture. Catherine's decision to speak was not spontaneous. It was years in the making. For a long time, she played the role she was expected to: composed, reserved, diplomatic. The palace motto of never complain, never explain wasn't just protocol, it was survival. But 2025 changed the rules. Why? Because the palace has learned something crucial over the last few years. Silence in the social media age is no longer noble, it's dangerous. And Catherine, of all people, was the one to break that silence. By directly pointing to Meghan's inner circle as the source of the William affair rumor, she drew a hard line between disagreement and sabotage. This wasn't just a clash of personalities. It wasn't just a falling out between in-laws. It was, in Catherine's words, a deliberate attempt to fracture the monarchy from the inside. A move designed not just to protect Meghan's image during a turbulent press cycle, but to erode the credibility of the future king and queen. Because once you plant the seed of infidelity, you plant doubt, and doubt in a royal marriage spreads like wildfire. Let's be honest, Catherine didn't have to say anything. Her popularity in the UK was already strong. She had the public behind her, the press largely on her side. But she knew that wasn't enough, because until the source of the scandal was confronted, it would always be there, lingering, festering, ready to resurface any time a camera caught William and Rose in the same building. And she didn't want that for her children. Not for George, Charlotte, or Louis. She didn't want them to grow up under the shadow of a rumor that wasn't true, knowing the world thought their father had betrayed their mother when he hadn't. That's why this moment matters. This wasn't just Catherine setting the record straight. It was her protecting the crown for the next generation. And yet, as bold as her move was, it also revealed something darker, the depths of dysfunction the monarchy has had to endure in the post-Sussex era. The internal fracture between the two camps, William and Catherine on one side, Harry and Meghan on the other, has gone far beyond a family feud. It's a political crisis, a PR war, and now, a legacy battle. Because Meghan's team framed their exit as a moral stand, against the media, against institutional racism, against a culture that wouldn't let them thrive. But now, with Catherine's accusation on record, that story doesn't sit so cleanly. If Meghan's circle really did leak the affair rumor, not out of concern or whistleblowing, but as a strategic deflection, then the Sussex exit wasn't just controversial. It was calculated, and that's a hard pill to swallow. It reframes everything. The Oprah interview, the docuseries, the memoir. What once looked like a bold act of truth-telling now feels, to some, like an extended damage control campaign, preempting criticism, spinning the narrative, and keeping public sympathy on their side. Which brings us back to Harry. His being quiet, painfully quiet. No statement. No denial. No show of support for his brother or his sister-in-law in the wake of Catherine's speech. And for many, that silence is starting to say more than words ever could. Because whether he was involved or not, Harry now finds himself in an impossible position. If he confirms Catherine's version, he implicates Meghan. If he denies it, he risks further fracturing his already tenuous relationship with the only family he has left in the UK. He's trapped, and the longer he stays silent, the more the public starts to suspect he already made his choice years ago. That's what makes this moment so tragic. At its core, the scandal is about a family that broke apart. Brothers who once stood shoulder to shoulder after their mother's death now live on opposite ends of the globe, no longer speaking, no longer defending each other. And between them, a wall of rumors, some real, some invented, but all damaging. Catherine's decision to finally confront the biggest rumor of all isn't just a media moment. It's a reset, a signal that the royals are no longer playing defense. They are reclaiming their side of the story, piece by piece. And while Meghan and Harry once had the world's sympathy, they are now running out of room to maneuver. Public patience is thinning. Media interest is waning. Their narrative, once untouchable, is now under review. Because here's the reality. Sympathy works until doubt creeps in. And Catherine just introduced a lot of doubt. So what happens next? Does Meghan respond? Does Harry finally speak? Does another royal break rank and confirm what Catherine said? Or does the story settle, leaving the public to decide who they believe? Either way, the Rose-Hambury scandal, once a whisper campaign that nearly tore apart the monarchy, has officially collapsed. Not with drama, not with outrage, but with a calm, devastating truth from the one person who had stayed silent the longest. And that silence, it wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Now the question is, who speaks next? Tell us where you stand. Did Catherine's statement change your view of the last few years? Do you believe her? Or do you think there's more to this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like if you think this was a turning point. Share if you know someone still caught up in the old narrative. And subscribe. We'll be here for every royal twist still to come. Because if the crown has proven anything, it's this: the truth always finds